In Pretoria, the city of power and politics, a dark empire once ruled the shadows, and this was even more ruthless than the one from Star Wars. Right at the grand wheel of it was a man called Mpho Ntloge, also known as Sdomane 55. To some, he was untouchable, a provider who kept the township alive. To others, he was Pretoria's most wanted gang boss, a man whose empire was built on fear, loyalty, and control. On an ordinary Sunday at a Mabopane car wash, his reign came to a shocking end. But this was no random twist of fate. Pretoria in the early 2000s was a city of contrasts. Government buildings and polished streets sat just miles away from neighborhoods drowning in poverty. In townships like Mabopane and Soshanguve, unemployment was not a statistic. It was daily life. Families struggled to survive, and the young watched as dreams slipped out of reach. Where some saw hardship, others saw opportunity. With jobs scarce, underground networks began to thrive. Street hustles, black market goods, and unlicensed protection fees became the hidden economy. In those back streets, a new kind of influence was born, one that didn't come from offices or banks. Instead, it came from fast money, loyalty, and fear. For many young men, crime became the only door open. Townships became recruiting grounds. Gangs offered a sense of belonging that schools and homes could not. They promised money, respect, and a way out of hunger. A boy who joined a crew could struggle for status, but once inside, it was almost impossible to leave. Mabopane, where Mpho Ntloge was raised, was one of those places. The streets carried their own order, and the law often looked the other way. Young men who wanted more than survival found their role models in the ones driving shiny cars. For them, the path was clear. Power came not from rules, but from taking risks. That is the world Ntloge stepped into. Mpho Ntloge was born in Mabopane, where hardship was not hidden but lived out in public. His household was troubled, marked by absence and constant struggle. He learned early on that no one would come to save him. The streets were his school, and the only thing he learned was how to stay alive. It made him someone who wouldn't let anyone pass him by. Ntloge held himself with an unusual amount of confidence compared to other kids. He kept quiet at first, but his eyes never left the scene. He looked at men who were rich, had nice cars, and were respected. His view was that they were not criminals, but rather leaders of a different way of life. At his core, he wished to be like them. Later, Ntloge's neighbors said he was convincing and brave. He knew how to talk people out of danger, or get them into it. Boys of all ages paid attention when he spoke. His charm was real, but it was also a hunger for power. He would soon live his whole life because of that hunger. He was never like other people because of the choices he made. Even though school was important, the real lessons he learned were in the back alleys and on street corners. He learned how to move, find people to trust, and when to stay hidden. Being alive was more important than being good or bad. And in that struggle to stay alive, Ntloge found his power. He wasn't just another boy in the crowd when he was a teen. People noticed that he could take charge, even in little things. It looked like he knew his place in the world because of the way he walked. It wasn't fear that made his friends follow him. It was respect. They saw Ntloge as a light in a place that was mostly dark. By the time he was in his late teens, Ntloge had a group of loyal fans. Most of them were young guys like him who had grown up in broken homes with little adult supervision. They formed a brotherhood that required loyalty when they worked together, which was greater than friendship. At first it was small, but it got bigger over time. Power came with growth. The first things they did were easy. They brought hard liquor into the townships, where legal shops couldn't go, and made quick money by selling it there. They told shop owners they had to pay security fees, and they did. Soon after, stolen cars showed up, which brought in money and attention. The bad guys in Pretoria now had a new member. The crew moved with more and more trust. What began as a way to stay alive quickly turned into a goal. Every job paid more and got more people to follow them. Ntloge's crew brought a new kind of future to a place where chances were few, one that was based on chance and reward instead of waiting and being poor. The business grew as word got out about them. Some of the things they sold were pills, which fed another market that was right there in plain sight. When money came in, Ntloge's reputation went up. No longer was he just a con artist on the street. He was becoming important. For the cops, his name was now written down. Money followed him, but it wasn't the only thing. There was always trouble close by. With each deal, car taken and cash he made, the target on his back got bigger. Bad things became tied to his name. Still, Ntloge kept going forward without fear. As the years went by, he gave himself the name Sdomane 55. The 55 came from somewhere, but no one was really sure. Some said it was luck, while others believed it was a code. It didn't matter though. As soon as it spread, it had weight. It was more than just a name to be Sdomane 55. To be safe, people in Mabopane mumbled it. If you said it too loudly, you might get the wrong kind of attention. There was fear and respect all around the name like armor. It was both a sign and a warning. His rise was also helped by the internet. Others hid their crimes, but Sdomane showed off his. He told his story on social media, with his flashy cars and easy laugh. Each post made him more famous, making him seem like a myth. Many people couldn't touch him. The story about the man spread faster than he did. The police had to keep an eye on Sdomane because he was a target. He showed people on the streets that they could beat poverty, even if it was only through shadows. People were both afraid of and impressed by his name. Still, no one ignored it. When the cops finally caught him, the person going by the name Sdomane 55 was already out of reach. In Pretoria, he was no longer just a man. He was a story, an idea, or a cloud that went all the way across the city. Plus, myths are tougher to catch than men. In the 2010 seconds and early 2020 seconds, Pretoria had two sides. The city looked calm during the day, with lots of offices, taxis, and government buildings. But beyond the bright walls, the night was run by a different world. Crews competing for money and honor fought each other, and fear could be heard everywhere. No one could be sure they would be safe. There was always a fight for land in Mabopane, Garankuwa, and Pretoria Central. Tram stops, bus stops, and even bars were turned into control zones. Crews wanted to be in charge of who sold, who got in, and who made money. If you take one wrong step, you might end up on the wrong street. Every edge of the city was owned by someone, and those people all wanted more. These groups kept coming back to nightclubs. They hid their plans behind the music, the bright lights, and the crowd. If you ran a club, you could decide who worked, drank, and spent money. It was the same in the taxi ranks. Bosses sent guys to get money from drivers and vendors. Sometimes, these crews were too big for events like soccer matches that were open to the public. There was a lot of pressure on normal people. People wanted peace, but sometimes it felt safer to be quiet than to speak up. Everyone knew someone who got caught up with a band and had to pay the price. Many people said, better to look away than to be seen. Many people got used to this way of life. To stay alive, they had to fit in with the background. In this case, Sdomane 55's name meant something. Around the middle of the 2010 seconds, his group had locked down parts of Mabopane and other places. Rivals knew where not to go, and not even the bravest ones went there. Every year, he was able to control more people, and his influence grew. Many people believed that his word was stronger than any rule. There were other groups that fought back in Atteridgeville and Mamelodi. Men who thought they could take what was his grew up in these places and became bosses. But the street rules were easy to understand. If you stepped into someone else's land, you had to pay. The line stayed clear because of fear. Goals keep you awake at night though, and rivals kept trying his strength. Behind the respect, there were holes starting to show. There were people who were loyal and people who were not. He used to stand with some men, but rivals made them vows that made them trade secrets. At first, no one would notice these betrayals, but they got worse in the dark. They would hit where it hurts the most when the time came. The cops in Pretoria knew who he was, but it was hard to get close to power. Raids happened a lot, and his crew broke into homes and shops on the block. But after the dust settled, there wasn't much proof left, and the witnesses were gone. People were afraid to go to court because they knew what would happen if they spoke out or kept quiet. Charges kept falling apart. It was like chasing a ghost for the police. There were a lot of files, but cases ended in anger. Some police officers even said in whispers that someone in charge was watching out for him. It made the story of Sdomane 55 more interesting, whether it was true or not. The phrase, "It seemed like no cage could hold him," was used over and over again. His story got bigger than the mistakes he made. Sdomane 55 had a life that most people could only dream of when he was at the height of his power. His driveway was full of foreign cars, each one a sign of how much money he had made in secret. Under the lights of the bar, his expensive watches sparkled, and his thick gold chains let everyone know he was there before he even spoke. People wanted to be close to him at his famous parties, which were always packed with music, laughter, and people. From the outside, it looked like a man had won against all chances. But there was a web of conflicts under the shine. When he was out in public, he easily gave money to local soccer teams and paid for families' funerals. People recalled him as the person who helped out when no one else would. The poor thought that his gifts showed that he cared about them and was kind. But rumors persisted. Was this kindness real, Or was it just a way to get people to keep quiet and stay loyal? People close to him saw a different side. Men who had been his friends since they were teens were all around him. They had been there for him through all of his struggles. They were more than just protectors. He trusted them to run operations while he was away and do what he said, without question. These guys ran clubs, transportation hubs, and shops in the area, making sure that the boss got paid. They protected him from the world, but they also knew all of his flaws. With each new year, the company grew bigger. His gang sold hard liquor, goods, and pills, which were becoming more and more popular. The power he had made young guys want to work for him and make quick money and status. His reputation grew on social media, where pictures and coded posts spread fear far beyond Pretoria. As time went on, his name turned from a story to a brand that everyone had to respect. Even the cops said in a low voice that he was everywhere, even when they couldn't see him. On the other hand, power brought envy, and envy led to deception. Behind closed doors, fights over money broke out, and men who felt ignored became jealous. Some people said behind the boss's back that he was losing touch and enjoying his money while they took the chances. Others thought that teaming up with foes would help them get ahead. In the dark side of Pretoria, the people who eat at your table are often your biggest danger. Paranoia became a daily thing for Sdomane 55. He didn't fully trust many people, and he often changed where he slept and cut off contacts without notice. He moved in strange ways because he knew that one wrong move could be his last. In a world where greed rules, loyalty is still a weak thing. He knew better than anyone that a smile today could turn into a sword tomorrow. He felt that strain all the time, even when he laughed in public. At the same time, police pressure grew. People had been arrested under his given name, Mpho Ntloge. By 2021, he was one of the most wanted people in Pretoria because the police connected him to crime rings, theft networks, and even though he had a lot of work to do, he seemed invincible because he always got away before raids happened. His shadow always moved faster than the police who were after him. For many police officers, he was the case that kept coming back to haunt them. The morning of June 25, 2023, in Mabopane was like any other Sunday. The winter sun was low in the sky and cast a soft golden light over the township. At the corner car wash, speakers played music while the crowd laughed, and the smell of grilled meat mixed. People from the area got together to share food, drinks, and stories while cars lined up to be cleaned. For everyone there, it looked and felt like any other Saturday afternoon. But among the talking and dancing, one man's eyes were already fixed on someone else. While everyone was happy, a darker plan was slowly coming together. Though people were whispering, they could not be heard because of the laughter and the beat of the music. No one noticed how still the people who were watching were while they waited for the right moment. What most people thought was normal was already strange in the dark. Mpho Ntloge showed up in his car that afternoon. For some reason, he pulled into the car wash in a way that made people take notice. Friends greeted him with smiles and pats on the shoulder. Others called his name. He settled down with a plate of meat and a cold, strong drink, doing what he always did to relax. People outside thought it was just another Sunday for Pretoria's most feared man. There was a lot going on around him at the car wash. Nearby, kids played, women laughed as they ate together, and the air was filled with the smell of roasted meat. Men cleaned up cars, while music kept the afternoon's beat going. As Ntloge smiled and leaned back, he took in the attention that came so easily to him. From the outside, this moment didn't show any signs of what was going to happen. But there were people watching behind the smiles. For weeks, rumors had been going around that both his enemies and the police wanted to corner him. Some said that the cops followed him around until he did something wrong. Some people felt that someone in his own group would betray him because they knew too much about his habits. Still today, no one is sure about who sent the warning. It was all set up, but no one at the car wash saw it coming. While everyone danced and the cars were being cleaned, some people moved with a quiet purpose. As he laughed with his friends, they never took their eyes off of the man. Their chance had come from a weakness he had shown before and never fixed. The stalkers knew they couldn't miss this chance. Then there was a break in the peace. The music and talk were cut off by a sudden which made everyone in the crowd scared. As chaos spread through the car wash, people screamed and ran in all directions. Plates and cups broke, and what had been a happy Sunday turned into complete chaos. In the middle of it all, the man who seemed invincible at first was about to give up. The chaos was over by the time the smoke cleared. No one was able to save Ntloge before he breathed his last, and his kingdom fell apart in an instant. The place he thought was safe turned out to be the place where he failed. Friends who used to laugh with him were now frozen in shock, looking at something they had not expected. Pretoria was shocked when word got out that Sdomane 55 had been forced off the earth. His name had been important for years, and all of a sudden, it was gone. Fear turned into joy for some, who thought the streets might finally be able to breathe. Others were sad, as they thought about the man who had helped families through hard times, or paid their school fees. In life, he was both a threat and a giver, and it was clear in the end that he was both. His funeral reflected both perspectives. There were tears, music, and a heavy quiet in the streets. There were expensive cars all along the route, which showed what kind of life he had lived. But in the same crowd were parents, kids, and teens who remembered the little things he did to help others. People came together even before his body, some to mourn and others to feel calm relief. The authorities saw his death as a win. In press meetings, it was said that Pretoria was safer, and leaders praised the police for their hard work. But some cops told each other behind closed doors that it didn't really feel like a win. The man they had been after for years was gone, but the things he built were still there. The network that one person left behind was still there after he was taken away. The public was also split. Some people in Mabopane quietly cheered and said the streets felt lighter without his shade. Some people publicly mourned, saying that he had been misunderstood and unfairly targeted. People argued about him on social media, calling him either a cruel boss or a hero who was mistaken. It was split in memory, just like it was in real life. His story showed how hard things were for the whole city. These reports then came out. There were a lot of ideas about how it really happened almost right away. Some said that rival teams were planning the end and were waiting for him to calm down. Others thought the cops had worked with inside men and used betrayal to catch him. But the creepiest whispers made him think it was someone at his own table, a betrayal from within. In the dark side of Pretoria, the truth rarely comes out in the daytime. Every story had a small chance of being true, but none of them were proof. Friends didn't say anything, and foes didn't say anything either. Each telling of the story added to the mystery, which fed the story of his last day. The truth stays hidden because there are people who have the most to gain from doing so. Pretoria never felt safe or calm without him, at least not for long. Short-term, smaller teams rushed to take back the land he used to control. Everyone wanted to be a part of his kingdom, and there were new rivalries all over the streets. His disappearance made room for ambition, and almost right away there was a race to get power. The empty space he left behind was not safe, but scary. Over time, the government tried to use the situation to break up organized crime even more. Raids got worse, people were arrested, and officials talked about new plans. Still, the city's core hadn't changed. Many young men were still driven by the same need to survive, to follow the same paths he had. The streets of Pretoria always said the same thing: the game never stops. There is always a new boss ready to take over when the old one steps down. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.